Hey, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So glad to be here with all of you tonight. We are going to talk about Joe Biden's State of the Union address. It's going to be a good conversation. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notifications bell. We got a lot to react to. Should be an interesting conversation. Be sure to tweet this out. I've got plenty to say. Let's go.
Of the American century. I say that the century on which we are entering can be and must be the century of the common man.
A radical redistribution of economic power.
I mean, we know that racism is a byproduct of capitalism. Everything would be all right if everything was put back in the hands of the people.
We need a government that will make sure Americans are taken care of and organize the economy to serve the people, not the profits of a wealthy few.
We now have the techniques and the resources to get rid of poverty.
We got to start getting out there with the people.
Get out of the movement and get to the masses.
We need a government of action.
Hey, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So glad to be here with you all tonight. Just thought I'd get on here and do a quick reaction to Joe Biden's State of the Union speech. We'll just be on here for a little bit. So hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notifications bell, and let's just talk about it. Let's talk about what we just heard. I'm going to be going on RT to talk about it at midnight Eastern Standard Time. So be sure to tune in for my news reporting. But you all just didn't, but why not just talk about it? So overall, my reaction to Joe Biden's speech, I must start out by saying, he did a good job. The speech did exactly what it was supposed to do. It was a grand exercise in deception. I honestly would not want to be in Joe Biden's shoes. He said, name one leader who would trade places with Xi Jinping. Name one. Well, name one world leader who would like to trade places with Joe Biden. Name one. I mean, the country is coming apart economically. It's coming apart politically. It's coming apart spiritually. The very foundations of the country are crumbling and falling apart. And Joe Biden is in the position of having to make it look like he did a good job, like he's doing a good job. This is his third year as president, and he's trying to run for president again. Let's keep in mind, they've been trying to say he's too old. He'll step down after 4 years. But the White House at this point, their position is that he's going to run again. They've tried to reboot Kamala Harris and get us excited about his vice president. That hasn't worked. They've tried to get us excited about Pete Buttigieg, who's the Secretary of Transportation, and that has not worked. Joe Biden, he's in a bad position. He's been, running the country into the ground, honestly. He's been doing a miserable job as president, but he did a grand job here tonight. This was a very well-delivered speech. Why? Because he heavily plagiarized from his two biggest political rivals. He gave a MAGA Sanders speech rather than a Joe Biden speech. That's what we heard tonight. We heard a make America great again, American jobs, bring the jobs back. And we heard a make the billionaires pay their fair share of taxes. Aren't you tired of getting ripped off by these big corporations? That's what we heard. He plagiarized Bernie Sanders. He plagiarized Donald Trump. The way that Joe Biden delivered his effective speech tonight was by not being himself. He got DNA from Donald Trump. He got DNA from Bernie Sanders, and he morphed them together and made a wild clone that sounds nothing like Joe Biden and paints a picture of an administration that is nothing like his administration. And they went out there, and the MAGA Bernie Sanders DSA speech that he just gave was pretty well received. He did a pretty good job. Now, there's a number of things in the speech that grind my gears, a number of things I'd like to react to. So I'm going to react to a number of the things that he said in his speech. The first thing in his speech that I thought was interesting, I just wanted to touch on, the part where he had the relatives of the recent young man who was killed by police, the victim of police brutality. I heard that, I saw that, and it's really good. I guess it's good that Democrats are now voicing concerns about police brutality. But I remember for years, nobody talked about police brutality. Nobody. The Democrats wouldn't touch it. Republicans wouldn't touch it. You brought up the issue. The black community certainly knew it was a real issue and talked about it. And communists and leftists talked about police brutality. But for the most part, the Democratic Party, the political establishment would not touch it. And Kamala Harris, who was sitting right behind Joe, she was the top cop. She was the top cop for years, and she covered up police brutality, and she covered up criminal activities on the part of the police in the Bay Area. And her prosecutor's office in California was found to be doing all kinds of bad, practices. There were drug labs that were returning false positives, and they wouldn't tell the defense attorneys that. So these drug lab results would be used to put people in jail, even though they were false. They weren't accurate. The incarceration rate, it was really under the Democrats. It was under Bill Clinton, and it was, Joe Biden with the tough on crime bill and the super predators and the lock them up. They were the ones that championed all of that. And Kamala Harris rose up the ranks of the California criminal justice system, becoming the top prosecutor in California. They all did that, but now they are pretending to be concerned about it. But what grinds my gears the most about their grandstanding and their supposed concern about the issues of police brutality and mass incarceration is that there's one group of people here in America that have been standing up about it. They've been standing up about it, not just in the past 10 years when it was trendy. They've been standing up about it, not just in the past 20 years when it was maybe starting to be trendy. They were standing up about it 30 years ago when it wasn't trendy. They were standing up about it 40 years ago when it wasn't trendy. They were standing up about it 50 years ago when it wasn't trendy. And that group is the Uhuru movement, the African People's Socialist Party. Chairman O'Malley and the Democratic Uhuru movement, the African People's Socialist Party, they were standing up about police brutality, and they were speaking up about the crackdown and the mass incarceration and the terrorism against the black families. They were speaking up about it. When Joe Biden was the good friend of the police and was passing lock 'em up bills, Chairman O'Malley was in the streets. And when Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, when she was the state attorney general in California locking people up, Chairman O'Malley was in the streets. And when Amy Klobuchar, when she was the prosecutor in Minnesota, bringing gang experts before the jurors to scare the crap out of them, to convict black men and lock people up and raise the incarceration rate, O'Malley, you should tell it, he was in the streets. And not only, now that everyone is forced to recognize the issue of police brutality and the problem of mass incarceration in America and the horrors that the black community has been subjected to for the past, decade after decade after decade, and the police state that's emerging that first targeted the black and brown communities and raised the rate of incarceration. Now that we've been forced to acknowledge this as a society, you would think that they would be giving Chairman O'Malley a big parade. You think they would be cheering for the African People's Socialist Party and the Uhuru movement. They'd be pinning medals on them and saying, Chairman O'Malley, you were right all along. We were wrong. You were right. All those times you were out there protesting and we called you crazy and we called you black radicals and extremists. You were right. All the issues that you talk about are now on the front page. You were right. So is that what Joe Biden did? Did he pin a medal on Chairman O'Malley? Did he make the African People's Socialist Party? Did he make them into heroes for the country? No. Earlier this year, in August, Joe Biden sent the U.S. Department of Justice and the FBI to raid the homes of the African People's Socialist Party, to break into their homes, to fly drones into their homes, to point guns in their faces, to steal their laptops, steal their computers, and call them agents of Russia. That's what's happened. So let's be real. Not only was Joe Biden not there when it mattered, not only was Joe Biden, not standing up for the black community until it was trendy, until it was the hip issue, until the Obama administration was facing opposition from the Tea Party and decided to make it an issue for strategic reasons. Not only has Joe Biden only suddenly started to care about the issue of police brutality for opportunistic careerist reasons, not only did he pick the queen of mass incarceration, the California prosecutor who fought dirty, who tried to execute an innocent man and block DNA evidence, Kamala Harris, not only did he pick her as his vice president, but on top of that, the icing on the cake is he has then used the U.S. Department of Justice, the U.S. policing agencies, to target and terrorize the people who were raising this issue when he was too cowardly to do it. So Joe Biden has absolutely no right to get up there and talk about police brutality as if he's a hero, as if he's a hero of the black community, as if he's an opponent of mass incarceration. He's opportunistically grandstanding because that's the trendy issue on social media. It's the trendy issue among liberals and Democrats right now. That's the only reason he's talking about it. And right now he's terrorizing the African People's Socialist Party and Chairman O'Malley. They are under threat. They are under threat of indictment. They have been accused of being Russian agents. They have been terrorized by the federal policing agencies. Read about what's happened to the Uhuru movement and Chairman O'Malley. 1 second, folks. One second. Just got to communicate. Just got to send a message there. So that's particularly infuriating. It's particularly infuriating to see the way Biden invokes that issue. That was one part of the speech that I thought I wanted to comment on. The other things I wanted to comment on, he said that it was Russia's fault that we are facing inflation. He said it was Russia's fault that the war in Ukraine, that Putin's war in Ukraine is causing shortages in energy. That's bullshit. That is complete bullshit. The reason that there is shortages of oil and gas is because in response to the conflict in Ukraine, the United States has gone all out to push Russia off of the oil and gas markets. That's what has happened. Imagine that there was a store in your neighborhood. They were the only store in the neighborhood that had toilet paper. And you barricaded the doors of the store. And you barricaded the doors so no one could get into that store and get toilet paper. And then you said, see, that awful store is depriving everyone of toilet paper. Well, I can't believe this. Russia would love to sell oil and gas to the rest of the world. Russia's not depriving the world of oil and gas. The United States of America and NATO have barricaded Russia. They're waging economic warfare against Russia. They've pushed Russia off the markets. So that is absolutely deceptive, the way Biden just talked there. Russia so much wants to sell oil and gas to the rest of the world. They built the Nord Stream 2 pipeline to connect to Germany just so they could sell oil and gas. And it never got turned on. And then the United States pretty clearly blew it up. So that is just completely ridiculous. Utterly ridiculous. It is completely ridiculous. Utterly ridiculous for Biden to be saying that Russia deprives the world of oil and gas. Oh, the reason the gas prices are high, that evil Russia, not only did Putin invade Ukraine, but then he decided to just cut off everyone's oil and gas. He wanted to make your gas prices go up. Give us a break. Russia would love to sell oil and gas to the world, and the United States has barricaded them. That's one thing. The other thing, he makes it sound like this fight in Ukraine. He's got the Ukrainian ambassador, she's there, and he's making it sound like a fight for democracy. Not a fight for democracy. Ukraine had democracy until 2014 when the United States overthrew the elected government. The elected government of Ukraine was toppled by the United States. Euromaidan coup. An extremist anti-Russian government was installed. First, you had Petro Poroshenko, then you had Zelensky. Neo-Nazi divisions, official neo-Nazi divisions of the Ukrainian military were formed. And this government that is in power does not respect the rights of the people in the eastern regions, doesn't let them vote for the Communist Party or for the Party of Regions. It does not let them speak their own language. And They even signed a treaty, the Minsk Agreement, that they were going to let the people of the eastern regions, they were going to let them be. They were going to let them be part of Ukraine. And the Ukrainian government did not fulfill the Minsk agreements. They now admit they never intended to fulfill the Minsk agreements. The Minsk agreement was just something to buy time, to prepare for provoking a confrontation with Russia. And they admit this now. They had no intention of ever fulfilling the Minsk agreements. And after 8 years of shelling and 8 years of bombing and 8 years of attacking the eastern regions, Donbass, the People's Republic of Donetsk, the People's Republic of Lugansk, 8 years of bombing and shelling and attacking these people. 8 years of killing, 8 years of a food blockade, 8 years of dragging people into court for speaking their own language. Finally, Russia stepped up to the plate. They stepped up to the plate and they said, you know what? The people of the Donbass regions, they have a right to live. They have a right to exist. And no, the government in Kiev, we're not going to sit back and let you kill them anymore. We're not going to sit back and let you food blockade them anymore. We're not going to let you sit back and deny them representation and the right to speak their own language. We're not going to let you tear down the World War II memorials anymore. We're not going to let you drag them into court for speaking their language anymore. We're not going to do it. And after 15,000 people had been killed in shelling and bombing and all of that, finally, Russia sent its forces in. And they were welcomed by the Donetsk People's Republic, by the Lugansk People's Republic. They were welcomed and they were supported. They were supported by it, right? I want to show you what this is about. They want to tell you that this war in Ukraine is all about, Russia just hates democracy. They just hate freedom. That's all it's about, Caleb, is Russia just, they saw that this country called Ukraine was free and they just couldn't stand that Ukraine was free. And so Putin, he just said, I'm so angry about freedom, and he rolled the tanks in. That's not what happened. You want to know what the war in Ukraine was about? I am going to show you, and I've showed it before, but it bears repeating. Good things, true things that are suppressed, bear repeating. This is what the war in Ukraine is really about. This is a monument called the Alley of Angels. And this is all the children that the Kiev government, the government undemocratically installed by the United States in Ukraine, has killed in the past 8 years. These are the children under the age of 12 who've been slaughtered with our tax dollars given to a government full of neo-Nazis. These are children who've been slaughtered. 8 years. The people of the Donbass, the people of Donetsk, the people of Lugansk have been begging for Russia to come in and protect them. 8 years of killing, 8 years of death, 8 years of slaughter. And finally, Russia has moved in to protect these folks. And you want to call that an act of aggression? Russia did everything they could to avoid having to go in and protect these folks. They wanted Russia to recognize them immediately in 2014. They declared independence. They declared independent republics. Russia said, nope, don't join Russia. Don't be independent. Go back into Ukraine. Russia facilitated the Minsk Accords, the Minsk Agreement. Russia did everything they could to stop, to prevent things from getting to where they are. But the Ukrainian forces that were backed by the United States, that don't really have any sovereignty, they take orders from Washington and from London. Those forces were so determined, and they kept killing, and they kept killing, and they kept killing. And it was finally time for Putin to step up to the plate and say, these children's lives matter. These children's lives matter. I know they speak Russian. I know they're from regions that vote for the Communist Party, but their lives matter. Russia is moving in to protect men and women and children from neo-Nazis and bombardments and suppression of their language and torture and food blockades and all kinds of horrendous things. So do not for a minute let Biden say this is about defending democracy in Ukraine. This is about defending the lives of the Russian-speaking people from a fascist government backed by the United States, a government that doesn't even have sovereignty. Joe Biden admits that he got a prosecutor. He got a prosecutor in Ukraine fired because that prosecutor was looking into his son's company, Burisma Holdings. As soon as this fake government was installed in Kiev, one of the first things that happened was that a natural gas company hired Joe Biden's son. Even though Joe Biden's son has nothing to do with natural gas, they hired Joe Biden's son and started paying him tens of thousands of dollars every month to do nothing. It was a job that he never had to show up for. It was complete bribery and corruption. And there was a prosecutor in Ukraine who was investigating it, and Joe Biden brags that he made phone calls and got that prosecutor fired. We now have the phone calls where Joe Biden calls up the Ukrainian government and tells them what banks to nationalize, tells them what business deals to make. Don't for a minute believe that this conflict in Ukraine is somehow about, Putin trying to crush democracy. Give me a break. Don't believe it. Don't believe it. What in the world was he talking about with Xi Jinping? Nobody would want to trade places with Xi Jinping down. Nobody. I mean, what? Why not? Wouldn't it be great to be the president of a really strong country that's raised millions of people up out of poverty? That's the second largest economy in the world. That's zooming ahead in computers and all kinds of technology. Why wouldn't you want to be Xi Jinping? What was he even talking about? I will say that Joe Biden did a really good job. He did a really good job at playing up that he's concerned about the issues that Americans are affected by. He talked about infrastructure. He talked about the need for good paying jobs. He talked about how airlines rip people off and overcharge families because they want to sit together. He talked about drug companies and how they rip people off with it. They're overcharging for insulin. He talked about these things. So he did a good job in that part. I mean, and he talked about resort fees, how you stay in a hotel and they overcharge you. That was smart. Joe Biden, again, his speechwriters, his people, they did a very good job, right? They did not have an easy task. The country is in shambles right now. It's very obvious from watching the TV screens. Very, very, very obvious from watching the TV screens how divided the country was. I thought some of that heckling looked a little bit staged. The part with Marjorie Taylor Greene and the shouting back and forth, some of that looked like it was planned almost, like they wanted to do that. There was one particular part that I did think was utterly epic. And that's when he listed the number of Americans who died from fentanyl, and somebody in the audience shouted, "It's your fault." Wow, that was something special. That's going to be remembered as an epic moment in the history of American State of the Union speeches. Everyone got really upset when I remember Barack Obama was giving his State of the Union and somebody in the audience shouted, "You lie, you lie." That was a big deal. Well, "You lie" had nothing on. "Yeah, it's your fault." Wow. He tries to make it sound like we're all united. It was all this joking with the Republicans. "Hey, I'll work with you guys. You guys all hate me. Ha, 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 ha. I'm a good buddy. I'm everyone's good buddy." There's no covering up how divided the country was. Here's my question. Where was AOC tonight? I saw Bernie Sanders. He was the only one wearing a mask, right? He was wearing his mask and he, was fogging up his glasses, taking them off and all of that. Bernie Sanders was wearing a mask. Where was AOC? Where was AOC? Where was she? I mean, was she even there? I didn't see the cameras on her at any point. It's interesting to me. Now, I wonder why that is. Now, was she just there and they didn't show her? I didn't see AOC. Where was AOC? I mean, where was she? Did they just not want her there? People are saying she was there. I never saw her. During the Trump State of the Unions, they would frequently pan over her. Where was she? I mean, whoever the woman in that huge yellow dress was, she really wanted the cameras to look at her. I'll tell you that much. I don't know who that was. I don't know what member of Congress that was in the huge yellow dress, but she really wanted some attention. I mean, she stood out like a sore thumb. I'll tell you that much. She really, really wanted to be on camera. Smart move, right? Everyone, I'm probably not the only person sitting here going, "Who was the one in the yellow dress, the big puffy yellow dress? Who was that?" Oh, that was Kyrsten Sinema. All right. Well, Kyrsten Sinema, she did a very good job because now we're all talking about her, right? There's no better way to get the attention of the audience than wearing a big puffy yellow dress. So there you go. What else? What else stands out? Marjorie Taylor Greene shouting at him. One thing that I thought was amusing was Joe Biden, he didn't do any of the degrowth shit. He said climate change once, and he was all about economic growth, manufacturing, building, construction. Degrowth doesn't play with Americans. It plays with new left socialists, and Joe Biden is pushing degrowth policies. He's trying to shrink the American economy and hurt small businesses. He's doing that. That Joe Biden is trying to grind the U.S. into a post-industrial society, but he just knows that does not appeal to American audiences. I'll just tell you that much. As when he was talking, it was all about iron and steel and hard workers, and Americans can do anything if they put their mind to it. And he didn't even try. So if you think the socialist movement has any future embracing degrowth is un-American. Socialism is all about growth. And if you read our new edition of Socialism, Utopian, and Scientific by Frederick Engels, you will read all about how Frederick Engels makes very clear the problem with capitalism is that it holds back growth, with the tendency of the rate of profits to fall, with the problem of overproduction. Capitalism holds back growth, and socialism is about centralizing the economy so you can build it up. And you should read Socialism, Utopian, and Scientific. We just republished it. This is our new edition. I'm very excited about it. Beautiful new cover on the book by the great Fox Green. So check it out. But I noticed that Joe Biden he didn't even try. He did not even try to sell degrowth to the American people. His administration believes in degrowth. They want to reduce the population. They want to drive down consumption. But he didn't even try that environmental stuff. He just said climate change like one time. He gave it like one thing, but he was all about build, construct, make money. I'm just telling you the truth. Joe Biden absolutely does not want to even try to push that button. He doesn't want to try to push that button because it's a sinking ship. It would not work. I'll just tell you that much. That was amusing. I don't think if there's anything else that stands out from the Joe Biden speech. What did other people think, in the chat? If you want to send me a super chat, ask me a question. I'm going to be on here. I'll probably be on here. I think I can at most be on here for another 20 minutes. Then I got to hop on RT. I'm going to be on RT at midnight Eastern Standard Time to report on the speech. And I've got my notes and all that to go over, but probably be on here for another maybe 20 minutes. So if folks have anything else they want to share, any other reactions to it, that was my reaction. My first reaction was the hypocrisy around the Black Lives Matter when he's terrorizing the Uhuru movement, the African People's Socialist Party. Second reaction was the foreign policy stuff, the lies about Ukraine. Third reaction was that it seemed a little bit staged and contrived. But overall, they played up his character, grumpy old man, grumpy working class old man, which Joe Biden is not, but whatever. He may be old, but that's about it. He's not working class, I'll tell you that much. And the fourth thing that stands out to me about the speech was very much how it seemed like he didn't even try. He didn't even pretend to say what the synthetic left really believes in, which is degrowth. He talked about building because that's what the American people believe in their bones. The American people want economic growth. They want construction. They want building. They want a better life for their kids than they had. He didn't even try to sell the rallying cry of the synthetic left, which is degrowth, poverty, pessimism, hopelessness. He didn't even try that. Didn't even try it. He tried to make it sound like his economic warfare against China and the chips industry. He tried to make it sound like that was actually about providing American jobs. He's going to build chips manufacturing factories in America. Well, no, it's actually about trying to push China off the market, and that's what it's really about. But, there you go. That's my reaction overall to the Joe Biden State of the Union speech. But honestly, well played. He did a decent job. He, for somebody with a tough task, right? It was not an easy task to carry out. Joe Biden, he did okay. He did a decent job of doing, his staff worked really, really hard. And let's be real, the way Joe Biden delivered an effective speech was by not being himself and not representing his administration. Joe Biden tonight, he did his best impression of Donald Trump and his best impression of Bernie Sanders. That's what he did. He pretended to be a merger, a morph mixture of of Donald Trump and Bernie Sanders. And he got up there and he gave a Bernie Sanders, Donald Trump speech about jobs for American workers and America first. America is the strong country going to win, and billionaires got to pay their fair share of taxes. And yeah, that's what he was doing tonight. So yeah. Funny, he said stopping workers from organizing. Yeah, right. And then we saw on the railroad strike where Joe Biden really stood. We saw where he really stands, how he's not really with the railroad workers. We saw that, right? And he said, pass the PRO Act. Let's do it. Let's do it, Joe. Why don't you just, make it happen? I'd like to see you make it happen, Joe. He's saying he's so pro labor, I'd like to see it happen, right? Okay. I'd like to see it happen, Joe. I'd really, really like to see it happen. So yeah, he was really pulling off an Oscar-worthy performance of Trump and Sanders. That was political theater. So there you go. That was my reaction to it. But in other news, the very important Rage Against the War Machine rally is coming up. It's going to be epically important. Folks, I cannot tell you how important Rage Against the War Machine, the anti-war protest, is going to be. It is going to be the most important protest of our lifetime. And that is why there is an all-out effort against it right now. Everybody in the world, they're pulling out all the stops against this rally. I mean, Dennis Kucinich, the member of Congress from Ohio, who I used to know, who used to know me. I lived in his district when I was in college. He is going to be speaking. I am so excited. Tulsi Gabbard is going to be speaking. Judge Napolitano is going to be speaking. The great Scott Ritter is going to be speaking, the great anti-imperialist, former UN weapons inspector. He'll be there. Jimmy Dore, the amazing Jimmy Dore, is going to be there. It is going to be such an important protest and demonstration. Get your ass to Washington, D.C. on February 19th. No excuses. Just do it. Get yourself to D.C. on February 19th. This is, if there's ever been a time it's worth doing it. This isn't another hippy-dippy answer rally. This is so important. This is so important. Get your ass to Washington, D.C. on February 19th. There has not been a protest this important in Washington, D.C. in my lifetime. It is so important. We need many, many, many people in Washington, D.C. on February 19th. That place needs to be packed, because the danger of a new world war is hanging over us. It's hanging over us. It needs to happen. In a sane world, the Progressive Caucus would give a rebuttal to the State of the Union speech. Sure, I mean, we don't live in a sane world. We live in crazy world. We live in crazy world. And, we need you in Washington, D.C. February 19th, because the danger of a new world war is hanging over us. And we finally have a real coalition, real forces. It's not just an ultra-left, irrelevant regroupment. It's actually like real political forces are involved. This is a real moment where something is really happening. People within the power structure, people with connections in the Pentagon, sections of the American deep state that are opposed to the way the Joe Biden administration is taking things. This is such an important anti-war demonstration. Such an important demonstration. And yes, if you want to join us at the reception afterwards, I'd love to have you. I'll be there. We're going to have refreshments. There'll be speeches. It's going to be awesome. I know people are working really, really hard. Shout out to Elizabeth Y., who is working so hard on this reception. Shout out to Brian. Shout out to everyone who is working so hard to make the rally happen. Peter, and oh man, there's a good crew of folks that are determined to make sure that we have a strong event after the rally. There's a lot of great people in the Center for Political Innovation. We are a dedicated group of folks, very, very loyal, very, 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 very on task. We've got a job to do, and it needs to be done. So, I'm excited. We need to be in the streets of Washington, D.C. February 19th. The danger of a new world war is hanging over all our heads. And, to be there with Tulsi Gabbard, to be there with Judge Napolitano, to be there with Dennis Kucinich and Jimmy Dore and the Libertarian Mises Caucus and Scott Ritter. It's going to be important. Garland Nixon, Max Blumenthal. They even put out a hit piece on Jimmy Dore. If you're not convinced that it's a deep state operation against this rally, nothing will convince you. Exactly. Gavin's working hard on the rally too. He's going to be there. Gavin is 100% right. And that's the whole thing. These people that are all upset, they are going to tell lies and smear and try to destroy the reputation of all of us. And they've already done it to me. They've done it to Jimmy Dore. They've done it to everybody. And the only answer to that is standing shoulder to shoulder and saying, this is my comrade. This is my buddy. This is my comrade, standing shoulder to shoulder with them. And being ready to say, no, we are going to march arm in arm. Tara Reid, the victim of Joe Biden, who's become an anti-imperialist, she is going to be there speaking. Jill Stein from the Green Party, she's going to be there. It is going to be so important. February 19th is the most important rally of our lifetimes. I mean, there has not been an anti-war protest this important in my lifetime that I have seen, And so it is going to be so important. We need you there in Washington, D.C., February 19th. And yes, if you're going to be there, there's going to be a nice reception afterwards. Come and join us. Center for Political Innovation. We're going to be at a hotel nearby. We'll be at a hotel nearby, and we're going to have evening refreshments, and there's going to be great music and speeches. Jonathan's going to perform some music. Brian's going to perform some music. Paul's going to perform some music and speeches and music, and it's going to be awesome. So if you can make it, please register for the after party. Please join us for the after party. We'd love to have you there. We would really, really love to have you there. Here, I'll try a better link here. We'd love to have you there. It's going to be an amazing, amazing after party. Please join us in February 19th. I will be there, but there's legit criticisms that people are just ignoring. Frank Analysis, for example. People should go, but also be informed. Of course, you can be critical of anything. Be critical of me if you want. There's no problem disagreeing. But the point is we need to be there. That's the point. And that this is a huge step forward. And that's why there's just an onslaught of criticism. I've never seen this in my life, right? That never has there been an anti-war protest, that there has been so much of a psychological operation to prevent people from attending. They are doing everything they can to keep people from going there. All the socialist groups are talking smack, and the libertarians are on there talking smack, and everybody, they're just stirring the pot, trying to scare people out of going to this rally, because that's how important it is, right? This is a moment where a big section of from the highest levels of power in the United States are going to say, we do not want war. We don't want a new world war. That is so important. That is so important. Now is not the time to be a naysayer. And if you don't like the politics of some of the people there, which I don't, right? I can't stand libertarianism. I'm in favor of socialism. I'm not in favor of libertarian economics. If you don't like the politics there, you need to go, because you can't influence anything. You can't influence anything. I'm glad you agree. You can't influence anything if you don't participate. You can't influence anything if you don't participate. So please, this is so important for you to be in Washington, D.C., February 19th. There has not been an anti-war protest this important in my lifetime. It is really picking up steam and turning into something special. And, we need to let people know about the Uhuru movement, how important that is. We need to let people know it's going to be really, really important. All right, folks. Well, listen, I am going to wrap this up, I think, because I do have to go report. So watch me on RT. I'll be on RT at midnight. I've got plenty to say about Joe Biden's State of the Union. And tomorrow is going to be a big day. I don't know if people saw this. Let's talk about this. Let's talk about this real quick before I go. I don't know if people saw this, but tomorrow, Roger Waters of Pink Floyd is going to be speaking at the United Nations. Russia is bringing Roger Waters to the United Nations, and he is going to be speaking. Force the vote, exposed the fraud squad, and Rage Against the War Machine is exposing the PSL. So there we go. Yeah, and Roger Waters is going to be speaking at the United Nations Security Council. A UN meeting is going to be addressed by Roger Waters of Pink Floyd, the guy who made The Wall, the guy who made, See Emily Play, and the guy who made, Dark Side of the Moon. Roger Waters is going to be there at the UN given a platform by Russia to give his position on Ukraine. That's huge. So that is going to be really, really epic and important. And of course, me being a New York City based reporter, I'm going to be all over that. So that's huge. Roger Waters speaking at the UN Security Council. I just saw that on Twitter and I'm just like, wow, 10 a.m. tomorrow before the entire world, Roger Waters of Pink Floyd is going to call out American imperialism. He's going to say what he's been saying about Assange and about Donbass. And oh man, that's going to be really important. Really, 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 really important. So a lot of things are happening. History is moving very, very quickly. So, we just saw Joe Biden's, shit of the union speech, but tomorrow we're going to see a great speech by the great Roger Waters. I am not going to miss that speech. I'll tell you that much. So all my best, folks. I am going to say good night for now. Tune in to RT later. I'll be reporting in like an hour on RT on everything. And tune in tomorrow when Roger Waters addresses the UN Security Council to expose the U.S. imperialists and their Ukraine, provocations. It's going to be wild, folks. Going to be wild. All right. All my best. Talk to you soon, folks. Bye.